stood in my white lace gown under the gazebo, feeling beautiful for the first time in years. The afternoon sun filtered through the lattice work, casting delicate shadows across my dress that made the lace look like it was glowing. My bouquet of white roses and baby's breath trembled slightly in my hands, but it was from excitement, not nerves. I'd spent months preparing for this day, losing sleep over every detail, worrying about every possible thing that could go wrong. But standing there in that moment, with the string quartet playing softly in the background and my guests watching with warm smiles, I felt perfect. Riven, the celebrity photographer my mother-in-law Ottilie had insisted on hearing, lowered his expensive camera with a heavy sigh that seemed to echo across the garden. The sound cut through the peaceful moment like a knife through silk. He turned to his assistant Winslow, not even bothering to lower his voice or step away from where I could hear every word. "The lighting is fine, but the subject is heavy. Can we swap the bride for the maid of honor for the portfolio shots? The bride's face is ruining the aesthetic. She looks like a dumpling in a napkin." The words hung in the air like poison. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I felt my chest cave in, all the beautiful feeling draining out of me like water through a sieve. But Evander, my husband of exactly 2 hours, didn't hesitate for even a second. He walked up to Riven with purpose, ripped the $5,000 camera from his hands, opened the memory card slot, pulled out the SD card, and stomped on it repeatedly until it was nothing but plastic dust scattered across the stone path. "You're fired," Evander growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Get out of here. Now." My name is Delphine, and my wedding day ended with the sound of a crunch. Riven didn't apologize. He didn't show even a hint of shame or regret for what he'd said. Instead, he screamed like a child throwing a tantrum. His face turned bright red, veins bulging in his neck as he pointed at the ground where the destroyed memory card lay scattered like confetti. "That was my property. That was a master class in composition. You just destroyed art. Do you have any idea how much work I put into those shots?" His voice echoed across the garden, making all our wedding guests turn and stare at the commotion. Some of them started whispering to each other, confused about what was happening. Evander stood in front of me like a shield, his shoulders squared and his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "You destroyed my wife's confidence," he said coldly, his voice steady despite the anger I could feel radiating from him. "We're even. Actually, no. You owe her much more than that." Riven grabbed his expensive equipment bag with shaking hands, his fury making him clumsy as he struggled with the zipper. "You'll regret this. I'll sue you for every penny you have. I'll ruin you." He stormed toward the exit, nearly tripping over his own feet in his rage. His assistant Winslow scrambled to follow him, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sympathy, guilt. My mother-in-law Ottilie rushed over, her designer heels clicking urgently on the stone path, her face tight with barely controlled anger. I thought she was coming to comfort me, to check if I was okay, to see how badly Riven's words had hurt me. Instead, she completely ignored me and hissed at Evander, her face twisted with a fury that seemed even greater than Riven's. "Do you know how hard it was to book him? He's booked solid for 2 years. You've embarrassed this entire family. You've ruined the family legacy." She didn't even glance at me. Not once. It was like I didn't exist at all. We returned from our honeymoon in Hawaii 2 weeks later, tanned and relaxed and happy, trying our best to forget the disaster that had ended our wedding reception. We'd spent 14 days on the beach, swimming in clear blue water, eating fresh fruit, and pretending the real world didn't exist. But reality was waiting on our doorstep. A man in a gray suit stood there with a manila envelope in his hand. He looked official and serious. "Are you Evander Morrison?" he asked. When Evander nodded, the man handed him the envelope. "You've been served," he said matter-of-factly, then walked away without another word. Inside was a lawsuit so thick it looked like a small book. Riven was suing Evander for $50,000 in damages. The breakdown was itemized. $10,000 for the camera, $5,000 for the memory card, $15,000 for emotional distress, and $20,000 for loss of reputation and future business opportunities. I read the document 3 times, unable to believe the sheer audacity of it. According to his legal claim, Evander had violently attacked him without any provocation whatsoever. He painted himself as an innocent artist simply doing his job, brutalized by a drunk, jealous, unstable groom who couldn't handle having a professional photographer at his wedding. There was no mention anywhere in the legal document of what he'd said to me. No mention of his deliberate cruelty. No mention of his insult. The lawsuit made Evander sound like a dangerous monster and Riven like a helpless victim of senseless violence. "This is completely insane," I whispered, reading through the pages again. Evander's jaw was tight as he read through the legal jargon, his hands gripping the papers so hard they crinkled. "He thinks we'll be too embarrassed to fight back," he said slowly. "He thinks we'll just pay him to make it go away quietly. He's wrong." 3 days after we received the lawsuit papers, Riven took his version of the story to social media. He posted a video that his assistant Winslow had filmed during the confrontation at our wedding, but he'd edited it very carefully, very deliberately. The video started after his insult, showing only Evander grabbing the camera and smashing the memory card. There was no context provided, no audio of what Riven had said to provoke the response. No explanation of what had happened in the moments before. The caption read, "Violent groom assaults innocent artist on wedding day. This is what happens when ego meets art. Justice for creatives. Link to legal fund in bio." The video went viral within hours. First 20,000 shares, then 50,000, then 100,000. The numbers kept climbing. The comments section exploded with anger directed entirely at us. People called Evander abusive, unstable, violent, dangerous, controlling. They called me spoiled, entitled, a bridezilla, a princess who couldn't handle criticism. Someone found our names and our home address. We were doxxed. People started calling me the Bride of Chucky online, making memes with my face photoshopped onto horror movie characters. Strangers sent me direct messages telling me I deserved what Riven said, that I was probably ugly anyway. That Evander should leave me. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications, comment after comment after comment. I turned it off completely and cried in the bathroom for an hour while Evander paced outside the door, probably wanting to smash something else. I sat on the cold kitchen floor 3 nights later, my laptop open in front of me, scrolling endlessly through the comments on social media. I couldn't stop reading them, even though each one felt like a physical punch to my stomach. "He should divorce her immediately," one comment said with dozens of likes. "She's probably a nightmare to live with. Poor guy," said another. "Imagine being so insecure you can't handle one comment from a professional," wrote someone else. I felt physically sick. Maybe they were right. Maybe I had been too sensitive about the whole thing. Maybe I should have just laughed it off, taken the criticism, moved on like an adult. Maybe I really was ugly and I just couldn't handle hearing the truth spoken out loud. When Evander found me sitting there, my face was wet with tears and my eyes were red from crying. "We should settle," I told him, my voice cracking and breaking. "Just pay him whatever he wants and make this nightmare go away." Maybe I was overreacting about everything. Maybe I am ugly and I just can't accept reality. Evander dropped to his knees on the floor beside me and grabbed both of my hands in his, holding them tightly. His eyes were fierce and determined. "No," he said firmly, leaving no room for argument. "Absolutely not. He bullied you on what was supposed to be the happiest day of your life. He deliberately hurt you. I will not pay a bully to go away. We're going to fight this with everything we have." The next morning, he hired Silas, a defense attorney with a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in the courtroom. The fight was officially on. A week later, a message popped up in my hidden message requests folder on social media. I almost didn't check it because the folder was usually full of spam and harassment. The account had no profile picture and only about 20 followers, which made it look fake. But something made me click on it anyway. "My name is Winslow. I was Riven's assistant at your wedding. I have the raw footage from that day, the unedited clip that shows everything. He called you a dumpling. I heard everything he said. But I signed an NDA when I started working for him 6 months ago. If I release it, he'll sue me too and I can't afford a lawyer. I don't know what to do, but I thought you should know." My hands started shaking as I read the message twice, then 3 times. This was it. This was the proof we needed. This was evidence that could change everything. I practically ran to show Evander. He read it carefully and immediately said, "We need to meet her in person." I messaged Winslow back within minutes, and we arranged to meet the next evening. She chose the location herself, a dark parking garage downtown, far away from cameras and prying eyes and anyone who might recognize us. She was clearly terrified, but she was our only hope for the truth. We drove there in complete silence, both of us knowing deep down that this meeting could change everything about our case. Winslow looked absolutely exhausted when we met her in the shadowy parking garage. She had dark circles under her eyes that looked almost like bruises, and her hair was pulled into a messy bun that suggested she hadn't slept properly in days. She clutched her phone like it was a lifeline keeping her from drowning. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I should have said something that day. I should have defended you right there in front of everyone. But I was scared of losing my job and getting blacklisted in the industry." She told us everything, her words coming faster as she got more comfortable. "Riven did this constantly," she explained. "He deliberately insulted brides, targeting their specific insecurities, making them feel absolutely worthless about themselves. Then, exactly a week later, he would call them offering special, heavy retouching packages for an extra $3,000. It was a business model built entirely on first destroying women's self-esteem and then charging them to feel better. "He has a folder on his main server," Winslow whispered, looking around the parking garage nervously as if Riven might appear at any moment. "It's called the Fixer-Uppers. You're in it, Delphine. He takes detailed notes on every single bride's insecurities so he knows exactly what to offer them later. He writes down if they seem insecure about their weight, their skin, their smile, everything." I felt nauseous, my stomach turning. This wasn't about art or photography at all. It was purely about money and power and control. Evander's fists clenched at his sides. "How many women has he done this to?" he asked. Winslow looked down at the concrete floor. "Hundreds, maybe more." Then Winslow dropped a bombshell that made my heart stop beating for a moment. "The memory card that Evander smashed," she said slowly, carefully, like she was defusing a bomb with her words. "That was slot B, it was just the backup card. Riven always shoots to dual slots for redundancy. He still has all the photos on the slot A card. He took it out of the camera before the confrontation even started and put it in his jacket pocket. He didn't lose a single image, not one photo. Everything is still saved." I stared at her, my mouth hanging open. "What are you saying exactly?" I asked. "I'm saying he's lying to the court," Winslow said, meeting my eyes directly. "He's claiming in his lawsuit that he lost irreplaceable, one-of-a-kind work, but he has absolutely everything backed up. He's suing you for destroying a copy while pretending to the judge that it was the only version. That's perjury. That's a crime." Evander grabbed his phone immediately and called Silas, our lawyer. He answered on the second ring. When Evander explained rapidly what Winslow had just told us, Silas went quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, and it was a cold, calculating sound that made me shiver. "He just made a huge mistake," Silas said, and I could hear the smile in his voice even over the phone. "If we can prove in court that he has the original card, his entire lawsuit falls apart completely, and he might face criminal charges for lying under oath." That same night, as if he had some kind of sick timing, Riven sent us an email. The subject line read simply, "Settlement offer." My stomach dropped when I opened it, a sense of dread washing over me. Attached was a photo from our wedding. It was absolutely horrifying to look at. He deliberately used a wide-angle lens and shot from below at a harsh angle, intentionally distorting my entire body to make me look easily twice my actual size. My face looked swollen and distorted, and my beautiful wedding dress stretched awkwardly and unflattering across the frame. It didn't look anything like me at all. It looked like a caricature, a cruel joke. The email body was short and to the point. "Pay the $50,000 within 48 hours, or I release the entire Real album to the tabloids and gossip websites. Let the world see what you really look like without flattering angles. You have 2 days to decide. The clock is ticking." I felt Evander reading over my shoulder, his breathing getting heavier and faster. "He's blackmailing us," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "This is extortion," Evander said firmly. He forwarded the email to Silas immediately without hesitation. Our lawyer called back within 5 minutes. "Don't delete that email under any circumstances," Silas said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "He just handed us a felony charge on a silver platter. But we need to prove definitively that he has the original memory card. Can you set up a face-to-face meeting with him?" We arranged to meet Riven 3 days later at his photography studio. Evander told him over email that we'd agree to pay the full ransom amount in cash in exchange for the physical memory card with all the original photos. Riven agreed immediately, probably thinking he'd won the war and we were surrendering. Silas prepared Evander very carefully for the meeting. He gave him a wire to wear hidden under his shirt, a tiny microphone that would record every single word spoken. "Get him talking," Silas instructed seriously. "Get him to admit clearly that he has the original card. Get him to say anything incriminating about the extortion. We need his own words on tape." The plan was simple but felt incredibly dangerous. We would meet Riven at his studio downtown. Evander would go inside alone to make Riven feel comfortable while I waited in the car, listening to the wire through Silas's recording equipment. Police officers would be parked nearby in unmarked cars, ready to move in immediately on our signal. If this plan worked, we'd have him on extortion and perjury charges. If it didn't work, we could lose everything. I kissed Evander before he got out of the car, holding on to him for an extra moment. "Please be careful," I whispered against his cheek. He squeezed my hand tightly. "Always, I love you." I sat in the car listening through headphones as Evander entered Riven's photography studio. My hands were sweating so badly I had to wipe them on my jeans repeatedly. Riven's voice came through the speaker, sounding smug and confident and completely sure of himself. "You made the right choice coming here," he said smoothly. "Paying is always so much easier than fighting a losing battle in court." I heard the sound of something sliding across a table, probably the memory card. "Here's the card with everything on it," Riven continued casually. "Every single photo from your wedding day. Consider yourself lucky. I usually charge double my normal rate to make pigs look like princesses." The insult was so casual, so automatic. Evander's voice came through, controlled and calm despite what I knew he must be feeling. "Does Ottilie know you talk about people like this?" he asked. There was a pause, a moment of silence. Then Riven actually laughed, finding it funny. "Ottilie. Your mother, she paid me a bonus, actually. $5,000 extra to focus all the shots on you and crop Delphine out of as many photos as possible. She wanted a family album that looked like her precious son married someone worthy of the family name. She absolutely hates your wife." The words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I sat frozen in the car seat, tears streaming down my face, my whole body shaking. My mother-in-law hadn't just hired him. She'd actively paid him extra money to erase me from my own wedding photos. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight and compressed as Riven's words echoed over and over in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Ottilie had conspired with him from the very beginning. She'd wanted me completely gone from the photos, wanted it to look like Evander had married someone else entirely, someone she approved of, someone worthy of her family. All those months of wedding planning, all her suggestions and opinions and helpful advice had been leading to this betrayal. She'd never wanted me in the family at all. The radio crackled with static for a moment. Then Evander's voice came through clearly. "That's interesting. Tell me more about this arrangement you had with my mother." He was keeping Riven talking, getting more evidence on tape. Riven, clearly feeling completely confident now that he thought he'd won, continued talking freely. "Rich mothers-in-law are honestly my best clients," he said. "They pay extra for all sorts of special services. Cropping people out, heavy retouching, sometimes completely removing people from family photos entirely. It's a premium service I provide for the right price. Ottilie specifically wanted you to have wedding photos you could actually display in your home without embarrassment." Silas, sitting in the passenger seat next to me with recording equipment, was documenting everything. He typed something quickly on his phone. Seconds later, I saw police cars starting to move slowly toward the studio building. It was time to end this. Evander gave the signal by saying the exact code phrase we'd all agreed on beforehand. "I think we're done here now." Police burst through the studio doors immediately, their movements fast and coordinated. I heard shouting, the sounds of things crashing and breaking. Riven screamed loudly, "What is this? This is entrapment. You can't do this." Officers announced clearly that they had a valid warrant to search the entire premises for evidence of extortion, fraud, and perjury. They began seizing his computers, his external hard drives, his cameras, his lenses, everything. Riven was handcuffed, still screaming as they read him his legal rights. "It's my artistic right to charge what I want. This is censorship. You can't do this to me." I got out of the car and walked quickly toward the studio. Through the large front window, I could see Riven being led out in handcuffs, his face purple with rage and disbelief. When he saw me standing there watching, he actually lunged forward toward me, held back only by the officers gripping his arms. "This is all your fault," he shouted at me. "You ruined everything because you couldn't handle the truth about your ugly face. An officer pushed him firmly into the back of the police car. The door slammed shut, cutting off his words mid-sentence. Evander came out and immediately wrapped his arms around me tightly. "It's over," he whispered into my hair. "It's finally over." 3 days later, Silas called with news that made everything even worse. Torin, a forensic data specialist working directly with the police investigation, had cracked open all of Riven's seized computers and external hard drives. What they found was far worse than anyone had imagined possible. The Fixer-Uppers folder was just the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg. Riven had hundreds of folders on his drives, meticulously organized by year and event type. Hidden camera footage of brides changing clothes in dressing rooms. Photos taken secretly through windows. Screenshots of private social media accounts. He'd been running an illegal website on the dark web, selling paid access to these private, intimate moments to strangers. Brides who'd trusted him completely, who'd been vulnerable in front of him, had been violated in the absolute worst way possible. "There are over 300 identified victims so far," Silas told us, his voice heavy. "The police are working on contacting all of them. This isn't just extortion anymore." He's looking at serious federal charges for voyeurism, distribution of intimate images without consent, and potentially more as they dig deeper. I felt physically sick to my stomach. How many women had he hurt over the years? How many had paid him thousands of dollars to fix insecurities he deliberately created, never knowing he was exploiting them in even worse ways behind their backs? The police began systematically reaching out to victims whose information they found on Riven's hard drives. One of them was Clarabelle, a famous Instagram model with over 5 million followers. She'd hired Riven 3 years ago for an expensive personal branding photo shoot. According to the files police found, he'd blackmailed her afterward with compromising photos he'd taken without her knowledge or consent. She'd paid him $30,000 to keep them private and had lived in fear ever since. Now she was ready to go public with her story. Clarabelle posted a raw, emotional video on her Instagram account. Tears streamed down her face as she told her story to millions of followers. "I've been silent for 3 years because I was ashamed and scared, but I'm done protecting him. Riven is a predator who uses his camera as a weapon against women. What happened to Delphine happened to me too. We're not alone." Her post got millions of views within the first few hours. Suddenly, like a dam breaking, dozens of other women started coming forward with their own stories of harassment, manipulation, and exploitation. The narrative was shifting dramatically and quickly. We weren't crazy or violent or overreacting. We were victims who were finally fighting back against an abuser. The internet's opinion changed overnight like flipping a switch. Comments that had previously called us abusive and unstable now called us brave and heroic for standing up. I decided it was finally time to tell my side of the story completely. Winslow sent us the raw, completely unedited video footage from the wedding ceremony. I sat down at my computer and recorded a video explaining everything that had happened from my perspective. I showed the unedited clip where Riven called me a dumpling in a napkin. I played the audio recording of him admitting he had the original memory card all along and extorting us for money. I explained in detail the dual-slot lie he'd told the court. I posted it with a simple, direct caption. "The truth, finally." The video went viral immediately, spreading faster than I could have imagined. Within 6 hours, it had 5 million views, 10 million by the end of the day, 20 million by the next morning. The comments section absolutely exploded with support and encouragement. "We're so sorry we didn't believe you at first. You're incredibly brave for fighting back. Riven deserves everything that's coming to him." Major news outlets picked up the story for their evening broadcasts. We were featured on morning talk shows, the evening news, trending on every single social media platform simultaneously. Riven's professional accounts were flooded with angry game over comments. His business website crashed from the overwhelming traffic. His professional reputation, built over 15 years, was completely destroyed in a matter of days. Everything he'd built on the suffering of vulnerable women was crumbling, and I felt nothing but pure relief. We hadn't spoken to Ottilie at all since hearing the recording of her betrayal. She'd called and texted dozens of times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails, but we ignored every single attempt at contact. 2 weeks after Riven's arrest, she showed up at our house completely unannounced. I opened the front door and found her standing there on our porch, her designer handbag clutched tightly in her hands like a shield. I had no idea he was a criminal, she said immediately, the words rushing out. I just wanted good lighting for the wedding photos. You have to believe me, please. Her voice was pleading, desperate, shaking. Evander came to the door, his face completely cold and emotionless. Without saying a single word to her, he pulled out his phone and played the damning recording. Riven's voice filled the air between us. Adelie paid me a bonus. $5,000 extra to focus shots on you and crop Delphine out where possible. She wanted a family album that looked like her son married someone worthy of the family name. Adelie's face went completely white, all the blood draining from her cheeks. Her mouth opened and closed repeatedly, but no sound came out at all. Finally, she managed to whisper weakly, I just wanted to protect the family image. That's all I wanted. The excuse hung in the air like a bad smell that wouldn't dissipate. Evander looked at his mother with eyes I'd never seen him use before. They were cold, final, completely closed off. Delphine is my family now, he said quietly but firmly. You are extended relatives at best, and only if you earn your way back into our lives. Adelie's eyes filled with tears that started spilling down her cheeks. You can't mean that. I'm your mother. I raised you by myself. I sacrificed everything for you. You tried to erase my wife from our wedding, Evander said, his voice steady and unwavering. You paid someone to make her invisible because you were ashamed of her existence. That's not love, that's not family, that's cruelty. He stepped back and started closing the door slowly. Adelie put her hand out desperately to stop it from closing. Please, she begged, her voice breaking. Don't do this to me. You're not welcome in our lives until you learn what respect actually means, Evander said. When you're ready to apologize to Delphine sincerely, really apologize and mean it, we'll talk. Until then, stay away from us. He closed the door firmly. Through the window, I watched Adelie stand frozen on the porch for a long moment, her shoulders shaking. Then she finally walked away slowly. She was sobbing openly. Mascara running down her face. Part of me felt bad for her, but a much bigger part of me felt free for the first time. She'd finally faced real consequences for her cruelty. Silas filed a massive countersuit on our behalf, but it wasn't just for us anymore. He organized a class action lawsuit representing all the women Riven had victimized over his career. Over 200 women joined the lawsuit within the first week. The damages claimed were in the millions of dollars. Lost wages from women who'd quit their jobs due to trauma and anxiety. Ongoing therapy costs for years of treatment. Compensation for the severe violation of privacy. Punitive damages for the intentional infliction of emotional distress. Riven's photography studio was seized as part of the legal proceedings. His bank accounts were frozen by court order. Everything he'd earned from his predatory business model was systematically being taken away. The trial date was set for 6 months in the future, but Riven's lawyer was already talking seriously about settlement options. There was simply too much evidence stacked against him. Too many victims willing to testify, too many crimes documented on his own computers. He couldn't win in court, and absolutely everyone involved knew it. He's going to lose everything, Silas told us during a meeting at his office. His career, his money, his freedom, his reputation. Justice is finally coming. I nodded slowly, but I didn't feel triumphant or victorious. I just felt exhausted and tired. I was ready for all of it to be over and done with. Riven was released on bail while awaiting his trial. Desperate, vindictive, and with nothing left to lose, he made one final attempt to hurt me. He leaked the distorted photo, the one from his blackmail email, to a major gossip website. Within hours, it was everywhere online. "This is what the bride really looks like," the headlines read mockingly. I saw the photo trending on social media, my distorted face and body being shared thousands of times per minute. I expected to feel humiliation. I expected to feel crushing shame. Instead, something completely unexpected happened that changed everything. Women started posting their own unflattering photos in solidarity. Photos taken from terrible angles, with harsh lighting, in awkward poses that nobody would normally share. They used the hashtag #RealBride and wrote powerful messages about accepting their bodies exactly as they were. "This is me at my worst angle and I'm still beautiful. No more hiding from bad photos. Every body is a real body." The movement exploded overnight into something massive. Millions of women participated worldwide. Celebrities joined in. Riven had tried to shame me one last time, but instead, He'd accidentally started a revolution of self-acceptance and body positivity. While all this chaos was happening online, Winslow reached out to us again through private message. "I have something for you both," she wrote. She explained that she'd been firing off shots on her own personal camera during the wedding while Riven was setting up his staged shots. Candid moments she'd captured while he was busy being cruel. She'd been too scared to show them before, afraid Riven would accuse her of trying to steal his clients or violate her contract. But now she sent them all to us. I opened the files and actually gasped out loud. They were absolutely beautiful. Really, truly beautiful in a way Riven's staged shots never could have been. One photo showed Evander looking at me during our vows, his eyes full of pure love and devotion. Another caught us laughing together during the reception, completely natural and joyful. A third showed the exact moment right after he smashed the memory card, holding my hand protectively, his body shielding mine. These were real moments, real emotion. Real love captured authentically. "Photos by Winslow," I wrote when I posted them online. "The real talent who was hidden behind the camera." Her Instagram account exploded overnight. She gained 50,000 followers immediately, 100,000 by the next day, 200,000 by the end of the week. Wedding planners started reaching out, offering her jobs at premium rates. Her career launched into success while Riven's ended in disgrace. 4 months after his initial arrest, Riven accepted a plea deal. His lawyer had advised him that going to trial would result in decades in federal prison. The evidence against him was simply overwhelming and impossible to fight. He pleaded guilty to multiple charges: extortion, perjury, voyeurism, and distribution of intimate images without consent. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in state prison. When he was eventually released, he would be registered as a sex offender for the rest of his life. He was also banned permanently from owning any professional camera equipment ever again. "The court finds that you weaponized your position of trust," the judge said during sentencing, her voice stern. "You systematically exploited vulnerable women for both profit and pleasure. You showed absolutely no remorse. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes." Riven stood there in his orange prison jumpsuit, no longer the confident, arrogant artist, just a broken man facing consequences for his actions. I attended the sentencing with 50 other victims. When it was over, we hugged each other, crying. Claribel squeezed my hand tightly. "Thank you for fighting," she whispered. "You started this." I shook my head. "No, we finished it together." 2 weeks after the sentencing hearing, a thick envelope arrived at our house. Expensive cream paper, elegant handwriting on the front. It was from Ottilie. I almost threw it away without opening it, my hand hovering over the trash can, but something stopped me. Inside was a letter handwritten on multiple pages. No excuses, no justifications, just a direct apology. I was wrong about everything. I was cruel and prejudiced. "I let my pride and my prejudices hurt you, and in doing so, I hurt my son terribly. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a chance to try to make this right." I read it 3 times slowly. Evander read it once and set it down on the table. "What do you want to do?" he asked me gently. I thought about it for a long time, considering all the pain and betrayal. Finally, I said, "I'll meet with her. Once. Alone." We met at a small coffee shop downtown. Ottilie looked smaller somehow, older and diminished. I sat across from her and spoke first, controlling the conversation. "I don't trust you at all," I said clearly and directly. "But for Evander's sake, we can try to rebuild some kind of relationship. But you are never allowed to comment on my appearance again. Not once. Not ever. One word and you're gone forever." Ottilie nodded quickly, tears in her eyes. "I understand completely. Thank you for giving me this chance." The power dynamic had shifted completely and permanently. She knew it. I knew it. Riven's assets were systematically liquidated to pay all the victims of the class action lawsuit. His studio equipment, his expensive computers, his furniture, absolutely everything he owned was auctioned off to the highest bidders. I attended the public auction with Winslow standing by my side for support. We walked slowly through tables covered with camera bodies, lenses, and equipment. One particular lens caught my eye immediately. A prime lens that Riven had claimed in multiple interviews was priceless and irreplaceable, his absolute favorite piece of equipment that he'd used for 15 years. The bidding started at $500. I raised my paddle without hesitation. Someone else bid higher. I bid again, determined. When the hammer finally came down, I'd paid $2,000 for it. Winslow looked at me with confusion written all over her face. "Why would you want anything that belonged to him?" she asked. I picked up the lens carefully and handed it directly to her. "Make something beautiful with this," I told her seriously. "Take something he used to hurt people and use it to create joy instead. Cleanse its karma completely." Winslow's eyes filled with tears. She hugged me tightly, the lens pressed between us. "I promise," she whispered into my shoulder. That lens went on to capture thousands of beautiful moments at weddings where brides felt celebrated and loved, not diminished. Evander and I stood in our hallway several weeks later, deciding which wedding photo to frame and hang on our wall. We had dozens of beautiful options to choose from now. The perfect posed shots from other talented photographers we'd hired after the disaster. Stunning portraits from our honeymoon in Hawaii with crystal blue water behind us. Professional photos that looked like they belonged in wedding magazines. But we both kept coming back to the exact same image, drawn to it repeatedly like a magnet. One of Winslow's candid shots from the actual wedding day itself. It showed the precise moment right after Evander had smashed the memory card into tiny pieces on the ground. He was holding my hand so tightly, his knuckles still white from the force of stomping, his entire body angled protectively in front of me like an unbreakable shield. And I was looking up at him with complete trust shining in my eyes, knowing without any question that I was safe with him beside me. It wasn't pretty or polished or perfect by traditional standards. My makeup was smudged from crying. His expensive suit jacket was pulled askew, but it was real and honest. It was us at our most authentic. It captured the exact moment that changed absolutely everything in our lives. We hung it very carefully in the center of the hallway where we would see it every single day. And on the small wooden shelf directly below the framed photo, we placed a simple glass jar with a metal lid. Inside were all the pieces of the destroyed memory card, the broken plastic fragments that had started this entire incredible journey. "Why exactly are we keeping this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer deep in my heart. Evander wrapped his strong arm around my waist and pulled me close against him. "Because some things are worth breaking," he said softly, kissing the top of my head gently. I leaned into his warmth, looking at our photo hanging proudly on the wall, and smiled genuinely for the first time in months. Some things were worth fighting for too, and I had fought with everything I had. We had fought together as partners, and we had won.